The big challenge beyond that was working with my DP and trying to figure out how to keep it visually interesting as we went along, So we took the film kind of chunk by chunk. The thing that was unique about this in terms of, in relation, in contrast to everything else that I've made, is that I pretty much got to shoot this film in linear order, which you never get to do.
Old Man is a great film. I truly loved it from start to finish. And I love that it's just it's ambiguous in its genre. It flows through so many different realms. And I'm curious, what was it about Joel's script that really caught your interest to want to bring it to life?
His ear for those type of old men. I grew up in a really rural environment, was around a lot of folks like that and raised by folks like that. I felt like there was a lot of truth in the way he wrote. He wrote, especially Stephen Lang's character. I just found a real connection with that. And, once Joel and I, started developing the script, we tried to take it out of it was originally a play. So we tried to take it into a more cinematic space and kind of just, kind of like worked it over that way. But yeah, I just really connected with just the voice of the old man. I'd witnessed it growing up, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
So those cranky, good old boys,
Yeah. I very much understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned it was a play, though, because Stephen, when I talked to him, he said he wouldn't be surprised if it had been that before. Yeah. And it certainly feels very much that way, even in the way it's presented. And, so when you were putting the look of the film together, did you still keep that in mind, its roots, or were you looking for your own unique visual style for it?
This particular story is all about the actor, so then, if you're going to bring that into the film space, it's like, okay, how do you create the right atmosphere around that, around those performances and support those performances in a dramatic way with the backdrop. And when you're in this box, literally in this box for the whole movie, when you're limited to one environment, how much depth and meaning can we bring in, texture can we bring into that environment? My production designer, Lily Taplin, was just vital in that. We looked at a lot of paintings of Andrew Wyeth and pulled from a lot of that. Some of the, some areas of that cabin look just straight out of a Wyeth painting, which is so pleasing because there's always something very stark and cold about his work that I really responded to and felt like it was appropriate for this thing. So, the big challenge, and then the big challenge beyond that was working with my DP and trying to figure out how to keep it visually interesting as we went along, So we took the film kind of chunk by chunk. The thing that was unique about this in terms of, in relation, in contrast to everything else that I've made, is that I pretty much got to shoot this film in linear order, which you never get to do in the filmmaking world. You're zipping and zapping, within a day, you're going all over the script, shooting little bits and pieces. But this, we were really able to kind of start from the beginning and work our way to the end. There's something kind of beautiful about that. And we just kept trying to remind ourselves, how do we shake it up? How do we keep it visually interesting? This movie, my previous films have all been heavily storyboarded, heavily shot listed, really, really planned out to a T. But we realized early in prep that you couldn't do that with this film because it was all about how the actors were working the set, how they were moving. So we just had really long rehearsal periods in the morning and would find it that way, just like, okay, how do we get the camera in the best place to kind of highlight what's going on dramatically here and how to put the actors in the best light. But it was a great challenge. I learned a ton from it.
I was going to actually ask, did you find that shooting linearly was easier for you, or did you find that it was more challenging for you?
I don't know. For this, it was appropriate. It just seemed like the smartest way to do it. Sometimes, a lot of times I'm always nervous to shoot the first scene of a movie on the first day because the crew hasn't quite warmed up and this and that. But, we'd done a lot of prep work before we got there, and we just kind of threw ourselves into the fire and went, shooting the beginning of the movie at the beginning of the schedule, I think, was the only really scary part of it for me. Because if you mess that up, then, but thankfully I was working with Alex Vendler, who I had done several features with before and have known for 25, 30 years. So there was a secondhand language there that really came in handy and kind of assuaged those fears of shooting the opening of the film the first few days of the schedule. Other than that, it was really cool because we could, as we were, by shooting in linear order, we were able to kind of build on everything we had done the previous day in a really organic way. It was much more like the writing process in that way, that where you start at the beginning and you work your way to the end in that linear fashion. So yeah, it was fun. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to do that again.
Well, I hope you do, because it sounds like it worked perfectly for this film.
It was a smooth shoot.
That's especially with such a small one like this, it's great to hear that it was a smooth shoot. I'm curious, how did you go about finding the perfect person to be the old man? I mean, Stephen Lang obviously is a legend of late, especially with Don't Breathe and Avatar. But I mean, how did you go about finding the perfect person for this character?
In this case, it came down to, who was right for the movie, in terms of, the sales angle of thing, but also somebody that's not shoehorned into the part just because they're good for the sales angle of the movie, somebody that's actually a really skilled actor, because this type of role takes an actor that has really, really deep roots in theater, because there's long runs of dialogue. I mean, some days we would shoot 10, 12-minute runs uninterrupted, of just Stephen Lang and Mark Center just, dueling with each other. So, that was really attractive in Stephen Lang, that he had deep roots in theater, just going way, way back. And so did Mark as well. And then also, I talked to him, and he, he saw something interesting in the material. He had a good take on it. And beyond that, probably the most critical thing was that I had friends that had worked with him, and I talked to them. Joe Begos had used him in a film called VFW, and he was just like, I was like, what was it like working with Slang? Because some people can be difficult to work with, and some people are kind of collaborators. And he was just like, just hire Slang. He's just incredible. It's like, you can't do better than that guy. And I'm so thankful to Joe for kind of giving me that final push that led to our casting him. And we just had a wonderful experience working together. I mean, Slang is, he's my dad's generation, my parents' generation, and he's a grade A ball buster when you're working with him, but in the best possible way. I kind of grew up around old guys like that, and it was just really fun. We had a really, really good back and forth between us, and giving each other a good-natured hard time as we were going along. And we really brought the best out of each other over the course of it.
That's awesome. That's always what you want to hear about a collaboration between a director and an actor. And
there's a reason that guy has 100 credits on his IMDb page, because he's really, really fun to work with, and he brings a lot to the table.
That's awesome. I love it. And speaking of collaborators, I'm a big fan of Paper Street Pictures. So when I saw that Aaron and Cameron were attached, I thought that was great. And I'm curious, how did you go about getting them on the project, and what was it like working with them for this one?
My editor from the guy, my friend Zach Passero, who's edited all my movies for the past 10 years, edited a film. Aaron's I think it was the first feature that Aaron directed. And we'd met at that time because Aaron was coming out here to El Paso and working with Zach, and, had a lot of late night, long talks about dealing with producers and dealing with, trying to get get everything across in the edit. And we became friends at that time. And then, years later, Mark Center came to me with this play his buddy had written and said, I think this would be something that would be good for both of us to do together. And then Aaron came into that picture based on our relationship, our past relationship. Aaron was also a really big help on my film Kindred Spirits when we were shooting that in Austin. And it's just, I don't know how much you know about the horror community, but there's a lot of love there, and there's a lot of, everybody kind of reaches out and helps everybody do their thing, and I think it works best when there's not competition between us as filmmakers and artists, but just this recognition that we all do something different. We all do something kind of special, do something special in our own ways. And we just get together and we help each other. And Aaron came in and was just a critical force in helping us pull all this together. Paper Street was a dream to work with.
I am big into the horror community. I became acquaintances with Aaron during Pale Door and Scare Package, and Cameron as well. So I'm a big fan of theirs, and I'm glad that you had that experience with them.
Yeah, they gave me, to do a small, I wouldn't really want to do, I don't want to do any more small, like, very small independent films unless I can kind of have the creative room I need in order to do that. Why else would I do it? So Aaron and Paper Street and Mark as producers, they all, they kind of gave me the space to do my thing, and they had a lot of trust and faith in what I was bringing to the equation. It doesn't mean we don't listen to each other when we throw around ideas and everything, but they kind of understood that the only way I'll make this movie is if I can kind of do my thing, because I've had bad experiences. Every filmmaker has had bad experiences in their past, and it kind of gives you these boundaries that you put around yourself before you get involved in anything, especially as you get older, because you get really precious about what you put your time into, because you realize the clock is ticking at a certain point,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you've put together in this film is wonderful. I really cannot wait to spread the word about it. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, man. Likewise. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your weekend now.
You got it. I will. All right, man.